Hello, everyone. Welcome to Journeys Unpacked. Today, I am joined by Alex Unitt, Partnerships Director at Harrods. Alex is a veteran in the beauty and the luxury and the travel industry, having spent many years with BBC, Condé Nast, and several others before his 5 years at Harrods. Alex, great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. Although you are in Harrods, but this is my home. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for hosting
Of
us.
course.
So Harrods is an institution. Harrods defines shopping and luxury in so many ways. So from your view, given where you are, given what you see, share a little bit about how you see this luxury retail industry growing and developing.
Yeah, it's an interesting time to be in luxury. It's an interesting time to be in luxury retail. There are macroeconomic and political factors at play which can't be ignored, and I think are really relevant to how we need to operate as we aim to be the absolute pinnacle of luxury retail globally. We've come out of, and we still talk about the pandemic times and how that really shape-shifted our business in different ways. Harrods used to be, I would say, a fairly even split between, I guess, the Chinese consumer, the GCC consumer, and then US, UK, Europe, rest of world in a way. And the one, really huge impact that pandemic had, as it will have done on lots of global markets, is the fact that the Chinese consumer really shifted and changed. And we haven't really seen the return of that. And you can be sort of negatively minded about that and say, oh, we've lost a percentage of that Chinese customer base to an extent. And we'll come on to why we haven't necessarily lost them later. Or you can see it as an opportunity to say, well, what do we need to do differently? How do we need to engage different audiences in different ways to continue to be the pinnacle of the luxury market? And so I suppose to talk globally, there are changes and there are these influences which have an impact both locally and globally that we need to be mindful of.
Yeah.
And then there's a shift in customer. There are younger demographics coming into luxury. There's a retention of lots of those who know and love luxury, but there's a Gen Z and the wider actual younger populations coming to be true consumers of luxury, and they have different expectations of it.
Okay.
So you need to be versatile, you need to be agile, you need to be all constantly forward thinking to, I suppose, continue to play into that luxury market in a meaningful way.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So what you're saying is that where a lot of these shoppers are coming in from is changing. And also who these shoppers are, a lot of the youngers, the Gen Zs, as we call it, are showing up. But what's interesting is wherever we've seen this phenomenon in other parts of the world, we see a very distinct move towards digital commerce, right? E-commerce.
Yeah.
Are you seeing something similar at Harrods?
Honestly, less so than I think either other retailers potentially or other segments outside of, true luxury, if you like, because and that might be quite nuanced due to the nature of our business. We sit here in 1 million square foot of retail space, which is and we know that our building is an icon. We know that shoppers, in fact, non-shoppers globally recognize our building and our space and our brand.
Yeah.
And that honestly is really only deliverable in the way that we want it to be when people are here in person. So, of course, we have an omnichannel approach. Of course, we have an e-com site, and we're always looking to, harness the best technologies and the best providers and the best partners to make sure that is supercharged, and that's part of the customer proposition. That's mobile, that's app, that's, on site. But in honesty, our absolute superpower is the way that we deliver physical retail. So we're not closed to anything in terms of digital enhancements. We see customer behavior move to more digital platforms, but where we see, the true heart of Harrods and the way that we really, get those customers loyal, that get those customers loyalty, really where they're really embracing our world, it is when they're here in Knightsbridge.
Interesting. So perhaps
honesty.
maybe as an engagement or, when they're not here, that's a good way to stay connected. But
Yeah,
really and truly, you see a lot of these customers, they still come back.
they still come
They
back.
they still want to walk out with that little or big green bag,
Yeah,
and they still want the full experience.
exactly. Yeah.
Makes
That's how we
sense.
see it.
Very good. You mentioned earlier that consumers from the GCC are an important group of customers for
Mhm.
you. Share a little bit more about this group and how their habits and behaviors have changed and evolved over the last few years.
It's been fascinating, as a region, and it's, again, as I said earlier, it's absolutely at the heart of our customer base and the way that we look at our business. You know, it's almost unfair on the region to say, oh, it's one GCC, because there are clearly
Mm.
nuances between the different markets that operate, or that exist, and our customer is different depending on, I guess, where they're from. But I guess we're seeing a much more knowledgeable customer base in terms of
Mm.
luxury. Luxury really has had its cut through moment, if you like. There is
Yes.
this real focus on craftsmanship, on authenticity.
Yeah.
There's certainly what we see a real demand for the exclusive and the rare. That's
Yeah.
really one of our pillars. Is we offer up products, services actually that are really once in a lifetime. You can only get them here at Harrods. You can only experience things at Harrods,
Hmm.
and the GCC customer base really leans into that, I think.
Mm.
We've seen for many years Knightsbridge across the summer months has been this home from home
Hmm.
for GCC territories, and the core markets for us are Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi, UAE. The big sort of global
Yeah.
powerhouse
Yeah.
markets. That summer period has always been, it's almost like Knightsbridge feels like another market. It does, it does.
It
And that
does.
people have residences here,
Yes.
people like to travel here,
Yeah.
people are escaping the heat. There's lots of reasons for it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is we're seeing that travel pattern flatten slightly. So you used to have
Yeah.
these huge peaks and the summer months being there, but now it's more of an ongoing relationship. And in terms of that customer demand, yes, it's exclusive and rare. Yes, it's the
Yeah.
finest brands in the world, but it's also the restaurant proposition, the
Mhm.
private shopping proposition, the service.
Yeah.
There's a maturity to that market. I'm not trying to do a disservice to how those markets operated or engaged with luxury previously,
Hmm.
20, 30 years ago. But it's really sort of in keeping with lots of global values around luxury now. And I think, as brands have in those markets
Yeah.
delivered more for those customers,
Yeah.
the brands resonate greater with those customers, and we're seeing
Yeah.
that here, in London. And that, as I say, from an omnichannel approach, we still have lots of loyalty and lots of engagement with GCC customers when they are in the domestic home market.
That's interesting because you're right. I think in many ways, the GCC shopper has really surged over the last few years, especially
Mm.
post-COVID.
Hmm.
And as you said, the appreciation for luxury has also matured over time.
Yeah.
But then if you flip it around, it also means that there are a lot more options out there for the GCC customer, for
Mm.
whether it's closer to home or
Hmm.
anywhere else in the world or
Hmm.
through digital channels,
Hmm.
which means there's a lot more competition for the share of mind and the share of wallet of that GCC customer. So in this evolving dynamic, where on one hand there's a surgence of the consumer, but at the same time there's a lot more competition
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
How do you create a very unique proposition and that loyalty to Harrods with these consumers?
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky in many ways that we were quite early to market with our rewards scheme. When I say early to market, I mean, it's just always really been embedded in the way that we have delivered that customer proposition. So earning Harrods points on purchases, there are different sort of means to do that. And there are lots of, you can spend your Harrods points in any way. There is no restrictions on
Yeah.
that in store.
Yeah.
So immediately you have that currency
Yeah.
by which people engage in the brand. And on top of that, there's a brand equity which we can't take for granted, which as long as you foster and look after that and maintain it at its peak,
Yes.
you can retain some of that loyalty. So we're lucky again to have the store, we're lucky to have the building, we're lucky that we're situated in Knightsbridge, and
Yeah.
Knightsbridge is, for many other reasons, an area which pulls in that crowd, if you
Yeah.
like. And sometimes maybe we should be more positive and say, well, we are a magnet that drives that. But it really is, I think it's a combination of the loyalty scheme, the brand equity that we hold, and then the third pillar of that probably is just around, as I say, the experience that people
Yeah.
have when they walk through those doors. What restaurants are available to them? Is there a multitude of cuisine? We know that luxury is becoming a lifestyle proposition,
Yeah.
whoever you are,
Yeah.
and so you need to deliver more than just product and more
Yeah.
than just a boutique within a store. You know, it's about the holistic experience, and I think if we continue to deliver that and do so in a way which is current and
Yeah.
feels like it's at the vanguard of what luxury retail needs to represent,
Yeah.
we'll continue to have that success against the wider market. You're right, the competitive landscape is ever changing, and it's tough in a way not being a challenger brand or
Yeah.
organization in that sense.
Yeah.
But as long as we, I think, hold true to our values and
Yeah.
the customer proposition off the back of that, we'll continue to
Yeah.
foster success.
It's really interesting because what you're saying is the experiential part is so critically important to your brand and to making sure that you create that loyalty. And we see that consumers today are increasingly pushing towards experiential experiences as opposed to, let's say, pure consumer-led experiences. So the fact that you've been able to merge the two, and you've not only done this today, but this is the history, the heritage of this iconic organization, I think it just speaks wonders and volumes.
Product through digital channels,
Yeah.
through the global availability of product for product's sake is no longer what it was, because you used to need to travel or experience or go to that product to as a consumer purchase or engage with it. Now you don't need to do that. So what do retailers need to do? What do lots of these brands need to do? And what are lots of the brands and the luxury groups engaging in? Is experiential.
Yes.
It's something that wraps around that product experience, because that's where you differentiate.
Yeah.
And part of what we, within our store, we could probably, if you look at what each square foot yields from a commercial perspective, it wouldn't make any sense to maintain some of the pop-up areas that we have, for example. So we have these spaces on our ground floor. This is prime real estate within our overall footprint, but we're looking to do something different. Sometimes we have what we call the exhibition windows, which is one corner of the store at the far end of the Brompton Road. Windows to the road. People see that. People identify with what is in that space. Now, sometimes it's very commercial, so we'll work with a brand on a limited collection, and that will drive a lot of trade for us. Sometimes we will put a Harrods own message in there, or we'll put beauty in there, or we'll put cars, for example. We've even had real estate from, the Middle Eastern markets, right? And again, that is a commercial consideration in a way, but it's dynamic and it always delivers something new. So keeping it fresh in that sense continues to deliver on that promise.
Very interesting. Very interesting. We talked a lot about the Middle Eastern consumer and how they're changing and they're shaping things. Would be interesting to hear your views on how perhaps they're exporting or influencing some of the changes that you see here. How are they perhaps driving some of the trends or influencing some of the decisions that you're making locally?
Yeah, it used to be somewhat one way, I would say, in that to the point earlier, that the Western luxury market, let's say, would deliver its identity and its product into market, and that would be the means by which a GCC consumer could engage with those brands. It is so much more two-way now. We at key periods in the year. So, if to take an example, leading into Ramadan and Eid, we ourselves market specific messaging, particular collections, particular categories that lean into what we know that customer demands at that period of time. But that is also now flowing through into Ramadan specific collections from some of the top luxury brands in the world. And that's either distributed and delivered here, where we know that there will be, a surge in that GCC population visiting London, or indeed we're also seeing brands take that into market as well. So it's a conversation now. It's a conversation between the local dynamics, if you like, and then the global luxury brands. And that's great, because it's not just a singular channel of influence. It's kind of a really engaged conversation, if you like, between the two, to deliver meaningful things for that customer.
It's really good to see
Yeah.
how local markets are also influencing some of the things that are happening here. I look forward to when there's even more, right?
Yeah.
Even on the product side, perhaps on the designer side, perhaps on let's see who knows what.
Mhm.
But when there are even larger influences that are emanating from the GCC market and making their way back to the mothership, if you will.
Yeah.
That will be
There'll
good.
be more to come.
There will be more to come,
For
I'm
sure.
sure. There always is. Now, you're in a very interesting place, right? And you touched upon this a little bit. I mean, you have, what, 175-year-old legacy in institution here. But at the same time, you have the Gen Z, you have a new way of shopping and people consuming that is emerging. And you said, we talked about this a little bit, and you mentioned how you balance some of that. But just share with us, what are perhaps some of the more interesting, creative, innovative ways that you're thinking about tapping into that segment?
Yeah, you mentioned the word balance, and that's paramount in this discussion. You know, we're custodians of a brand. Everyone that works here, everyone that's part of Harrods, we're custodians of a brand which is 175 years old, 176 this year, and it will exist.
Congratulations.
It will exist for another 175 years, and will be long gone at that point. So yeah, you're a custodian of a brand in a way that you need to maintain and uphold the values. And you need to do that in the dynamic ways which your customer base at the time wants to receive and experience us.
Yes.
So in some ways we need to be confident of ourselves and say, well, that is the brand that we are. That is how we represent. That is how people know us.
Yeah.
And then there's what are the changing dynamics of what people expect of that type of brand in the current context. So, we need to be relatively more fluid in thinking, well, how does our brand show up in channels, let's say, that are more engaged or more heavily consumed by the younger generation? So literally last week, and you feel like we're probably quite late to the party, but we are there, is we've launched Harrods in a meaningful way on TikTok. Now clearly, that's a growing platform and a growing customer base that's engaged there. But the way that we deliver content has to be different, because it needs to play into the trends that exist within that framework and within that channel and within that dynamic, customer portfolio. So, whereas we've got quite traditional channels which will, target at a certain customer base, we need to be a bit freer with how that brand looks. And we're working with the best content creators, the best influencers to deliver something that it is our brand, but it's a bit more of a, like, I guess, a nuanced, younger spin, if you like.
And you see that, right, with a lot of luxury brands. They take on almost slightly different identities, or perhaps different shades of their identity, based on how it is being communicated to which audience, through which channels, right? It can be a more traditional way of doing it, or it could be a slightly more playful way of doing it. It still remains true to your identity as a brand.
It has to, but this is where data and this is where personalization comes through. Because if you can be confident that you're targeting a certain subset of your overall customer base, you've got more permission, data-informed permission to be more agile in that sense, and show up as a brand, as you say, slightly differently in each in each channel. And without all of that data, without knowing those customers through first, second, third-party data more intimately, you couldn't do that, because you're not controlling the message in the way that it being data enhanced can enable you to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And data is, I think, one of those things where the more we use it, the more we leverage it, the more relevant we become to our consumers. But again, the way you're seeing it, how do you see, which technologies do you see fundamentally changing and driving retail behaviors over the next few years?
Yeah, I think we have a single view of customer, which we've been able to foster all of the data points we have on the luxury consumer through our reward scheme. And it's about lots of businesses will say the same thing. You can be AI powered. You can enhance the level to which you cut and segment that data, or cut and segment your audience and deliver that message accordingly. But again, to talk to that equilibrium question and that balance question, you've got to look at, well, what do we need to confidently say, and how do we need to present ourselves with a personality and the kind of the human creative angle about protecting and growing the brand, and how much are we informed by that data set? and how much
Yeah.
are we really sort of, moving this way and that way according to what that data is telling us. So I think for retail, it's going to be about driving that balance between, well, okay, there's a proliferation of data. There's so much more we know on audiences. As a multi-category retailer, we're in a very privileged position of understanding what those customer
Yes.
behaviors are across
Absolutely.
accessories, ready to wear, beauty, tech, kids,
Yes.
restaurants,
Yes.
services, all of that is part of our proposition. And honestly, some of the brands are, less well equipped with some of that because they might be singular in category. They might not have that. So we need to work with the brands, with partners, and that's part of my role and our role as a business is to partner with others who are sitting on their data but enhancing it with ours and coming up ultimately with that clear customer proposition. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I mean it's effectively saying there's more and more data out there. There are more and more ways to use that data, and yes, of course, we have as Harrods all of the tools by which to deliver that, but as everyone I think would say, it's how you use it in a meaningful way.
Exactly.
It's not just tools for tools' sake.
Exactly. So there could be a future where, I or a shopper walks in and someone there, based on maybe facial recognition, maybe other attributes, recognizes who this is. Someone comes up to me and says, welcome back, Saeeda, welcome back, Ms. Jaffar, and, how can we help you today? But they already have all my preferences loaded up. They already know what I've been doing, and they can say, perhaps we can take you to purses or shoes or clothing or cosmetics or wherever the case may be. So it can be a lot more personalized and a lot more curated as an experience.
This is why partnerships with the likes of Visa are important, because if you think about, as I say, single category, single brand, you have a relatively restrictive view of what that looks like. And also, if you look at other channels, so if you look at, meta algorithms as an example, now you will engage with something and it will sort of continue to serve that in quite a binary way. It's either you're in and out of that particular category or that particular trend or whatever. I think with retail and payments as a combination, you've understood what actions people have taken and where next best action is placed, because you're in control of the inspiration, the demand, potentially the purchase or the moment, if you like, and then what will come as a consequence. So if you look at beauty, we're in a really good position, as lots of beauty retailers are, but on replen planning. So, you've bought a particular product. We know that typically that would be 3-6 months. Now, certain consumers might consume things at different paces. If you have that data, then you know when the message is relevant and when it's irrelevant to that customer and kind of plan accordingly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, if I think of commerce, in the digital world, we are heading towards the world of agentic commerce, right? Which basically is around extremely personalized experiences and preferences, where it will be relevant to me as a sample of one. And I think what will be very interesting is your superpower is in person. It's the experience. But how do we make sure that we provide that experience in a way that is, I don't want to say keeps pace, because that's not accurate, but in a way that understands what the consumer is experiencing in their digital world, if you will, because all of these consumers will also be shopping in the digital world, will have the e-commerce experiences. But how do we take the best of that and we integrate it into what we are known for, what you are known for?
And consumers still want to be influenced, let's say, or they want to understand, or inspired is a better word. Or about, this is why we have, so here at Harrods we have a concession model where it's a shop in shop, if you like, and so there's a boutique for lots of the top luxury brands, but we also retain our own bought means by which products are delivered, right? So we're tastemakers in a sense, right? We still need to retain that. I mean, the way that we present both those concessions and our own bought brands has to make a coherent story for that customer. And so it's not just purely data derived. If you purely look at a data informed strategy to deliver that, I'm not sure you'll get the magic. You won't get the nuance. You won't retain that position.
Yeah.
I think that goes for a lot of business in a lot of categories, particularly those that have a real foot in physical experience, and that their brand is a physically felt thing. You kind of continue to hold the need of, well, how are we inspiring, is to your point, you know, rather than it just being generic, if you like, which is the danger.
Yeah, no, I get it. So in this ever-changing world, if you will, right, you have consumers that come in from everywhere. Critical moment when they actually want to complete that transaction, when they want to make the payment and they want to walk away with whatever it is that they have they've purchased in that little or big green bag, right? Tell us a little bit about that moment. How does that happen? What are the payment behaviors and trends that you see, and how have they changed?
They've changed a lot, and they've also not changed at all, which is it's a poor answer, but I'll expand on it slightly. I think to take a step back, we as a retail entity look at our store and say we have over 3,000 brands stocked here. So if you're into luxury and you want luxury product, you can come here and get pretty much anything you want. And so we have a multitude of options at your disposal. When it comes to paying for that multitude of options, you want a multitude of options, which is, you know, delivered based on what your personal preference would be. And so over the years, we've had to clearly keep pace with how the payments market is evolving and deliver that customer proposition that it's like, however you want to pay for this product that you've chosen, it should be seamless. It should feel like it's perfectly integrated in the retail experience. There should be no jarring element to that. And so, you know, I think in the recent history, we have looked at and have partnered with some of the intermediaries, right? The challenger moments of some of the BNPL providers. And there's been some success there because clearly customers have said, well, okay, if I want to split that payment or if I want to pay in a different way, I'm open to it. It's great that Harrods is providing that service for me. What we, I think, are seeing is that there might be different mechanisms by which people are paying, but they will hold with true value those brands and those companies and those products that they know and recognize, right? Visa is absolutely one of them. This, and I'm not just plugging Visa in this moment, but Visa, you know, alongside others, is deeply embedded in, you know, payment culture and products with global acceptance, and that's the real key. I think is that if you can be front of wallet in a local market to what we might determine a more obscure territory, and as you mentioned, we've got people coming in from pretty much every single country around the world. They want to feel confident that when they're transacting here, and that could be for many different reasons, they don't want that jarring element of the transaction. They want it to be a seamless luxury experience. They might be with people as they're paying, and again, they just want that to flow through. And, you know, being, as I say, front of wallet and having had experience with a brand, Visa, they're going to be more sort of, you know, in the mind of delivering that. So to answer your question, we provide everything for customers in terms of, well, maybe not everything, but we provide as best we can current multitude of options at their disposal based on market. But we are seeing, I think, increasingly that the more traditional, let's say, or you know, the core brand, the originals, right, are driving a lot of that behavior for sure.
No, you're right, and I think the other element that also goes with that is the peace of mind. Again, I know if I use my Visa credential somewhere, it's safe. It's secure. Right? I don't have to worry about so many things because whatever is said and done at the end of the day, a lot of the tourists it's not your home. No matter how well you know the place or how much time one might spend here, right? You want to make sure that that transaction will be protected. And I think that's something that absolutely you get with someone like Visa.
For sure.
So it's on both sides. It's the acceptance, but also the security, safety.
And the customer needs to look down. So you're looking down the track of that transaction, right? You want to see a flat track. You don't want those hurdles in place where you feel like you've got something in the way of you and the holding the product in the bag, small or big bags.
Exactly. Very cool. Now I have one other question for you.
Yeah.
As I understand, there was a really wonderful experience here over Christmas. In fact, I think there was a magical workshop of wonders that was in collaboration with Laura Piana, right? Which featured an immersive experience, an interactive in-store shopping experience.
Many immersive
Many. Okay.
Yeah.
Share a little bit about what that was and how was that perceived by consumers?
Yeah, of course. So Christmas and festive is a really meaningful time for us at Harrods. Again, to talk to that heritage, we've consistently delivered lots of people's first memories. If they're colleagues or if they're, customers, they will say, well, the means by which I first came to Harrods or understood Harrods was Christmas and the magic of Harrods at Christmas.
Very nice.
I think what we've looked to do is just continue to iterate what that looks like. And we were, privileged to work with Laura Piana this year, or Christmas just gone in 24, to deliver something that was truly multi-channel, that was truly immersive, that had innovation and also had, really authentic product at the heart of it. And so, Laura Piana is a as many will be aware, one of the foremost brands in terms of artisanal qualities, sourcing of materials, longevity of product, something for a lifetime. And so it's a really interesting brand to work with. And they put so much heart and soul into every single product that shows up that when it's an activation and when it's a big moment, the same rigor is applied to the way in which the windows operate. So we had animated windows, genuinely moving parts within those windows. We had a bauble making workshop, again, using those materials, but giving somebody or a group of people a real experience at the heart of it. And it was through the line. So we had real sort of, if you came into Harrods and you just wanted to buy a small gift, it was there, all the way through to over 450 exclusive products, cashmere and beyond, that were only purchasable within Harrods at that period of time in that 6-week period. So we were going from the ultra high net worth to the just casual shopper, if you like, and we delivered something meaningful through everything. So
that sounds lovely.
It was very magical.
All right, we're gonna wrap up with rapid fire round.
This bit makes me nervous. But
this is the most fun part.
Okay.
Right, not that the rest of it wasn't fun.
No.
But I'm just going to ask you a bunch of things, and whatever's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
All right. Your go-to floor or department in Harrods?
I'm going to say tech. Yeah. Do you want me to expand?
Yes. I'm curious.
The technology floor is incredible. So, we have, and the thing that really struck a chord with me is if you're into sound systems, all of that stuff. We have these secret rooms that are either Harrods or delivered by the brand.
Yeah.
We can go in, shut the doors. You have the most incredible sound kit equipment that can deliver the very best, and you can experience it. You can listen to whatever music you like, you can watch whatever film you like, and you can sit on the sofa and experience it. Whether you have the means to then buy all of the product, we don't mind, but you can go and see it. Also on tech, you have things that we have these beautiful miniature versions of classic cars, Ferraris, Bugattis, and they're these little electric cars built for kids, but I think adults can enjoy them too. But they are beautiful, and they do up to sort of 40 miles an hour, which is crazy. But they're scale models and so there's always surprising and interesting things up there if you're a kind of tech person, and if you just want to see something new.
Or if you like cars.
If you like cars,
why
go
not?
up there.
It goes back to your point about being experiential, right?
We
can't get that.
You can't.
Very
so
cool.
I'll go with that.
Okay, tech it is. Your must-try dish or drink from the food hall?
Can I say all of it? No.
No.
It's all good. I'll tell you we have in the dining hall. So the dining hall is this beautiful historic space that we have recently, I guess, renovated and brought back to true life, if you like.
Okay.
We have dim sum by Chinatown. And they do this dish which is porcini, mushroom and truffle bao bun. It's so good.
Mushroom, truffle,
so good.
bao bun.
So good.
How many cultures does that
I know.
cut across?
It maybe couldn't or shouldn't work, but it's perfection. So there you go.
Okay.
That's a must try.
Okay, we'll put it on the list.
Okay.
It's a must try. Very interesting. Very unique. What is your favorite Harrods exclusive product?
So we work with Judith Lieber. And there's this, it's not to everybody's taste, but it's magnificent. So it's a bejeweled clutch bag in the shape of a box of hot chips or fries, right? And so it's gold. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And it kind of, a bit like the food, it kind of shouldn't work, but does. It's this great play on, I suppose, junk food and ultra luxury. And it's exclusive to us because it says Harrods on it and it says hot chips and it's really cool.
I'm going to have to go
You
look
have to
for
buy
that.
one of those today.
Oh, absolutely. One souvenir from Harrods that's always a hit, other than this pen, of course.
That pen is always a hit.
Yes.
We've recently relaunched our sort of signature Harrods product, if you like, and there are these tote bags, which are we have loads of colours, but we brought a vibrancy to it. So you get these contrast colours, and so it's big Harrods logo, and you get this contrast of colours between the logo and the colour of the bag. And
interesting.
People want them, and if you ever buy them as a souvenir for somebody, it will always go down a treat. It's my top tip.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. Excellent. Tote bags.
Tote bags.
What's the most underrated spot in Harrods?
Underrated. It's all good. No, there's this actually. There's a what that question comes in my mind. We have on the entrance to kids and toys. We have it's just a corridor space almost off the escalator. So it's a kind of dead space, if you like, typically. But what we will often do, sometimes in partner with others, and sometimes we'll put our own sort of product in there, if you like, or the Harrods Bear, is we put these giant soft toys in. So we worked with Jellycat in the past to deliver this. We've had a Harrods Bear. And it's underrated because it's unexpected. So if you're with kids of any age, really, in fact, if you're with adults, you come in, you're not expecting anything of this moment. And just to see the joy in some of these kids' faces when they see this giant kind of cuddly toy. And therefore, I think it's underrated because you just don't think that you're going to have that moment. And then it's there. And then it kind of really starts this magical journey for them and you into toys. So that's my underrated spot.
Oh, very nice.
On the fourth floor.
Yeah. And any advice for first-time visitors to Harrods?
First-time visitors always are fearful that they will get lost in Harrods. But I think you've got to flip it and say, I'm looking forward to getting lost in Harrods. Because that's it, right?
That.
So, it can feel hard to navigate the store. It can feel hard to know where you're going. But don't worry about that. If you've got time, which people do, hopefully, come in and just let yourself be immersed in what we have to offer. So
very nice.
Get lost.
Okay.
Mantra.
Come get lost in
Harrods.
Harrods.
Get lost in Harrods.
I like that.
Yeah, it'll be worth it.
Okay.
And we always have people that can show you out, who can give you directions if need be.
Yes, indeed. It's been lovely chatting with you, Alex.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it. And until next time, Journeys Unpacked.